Thank you very much, everyone, for coming along to today's virtual staff room. And we've jokingly called it the Tuesday Techie Takeover, which is fantastic to see. We've got lots of people who are active in schools, supporting their learners and their staff to make the very best of the situation they find themselves in. And they are indeed in very, very challenging times. So we decided it'd be sensible to bring them all along and share all their wisdom so that other people can also benefit from understanding how they've overcome all the challenges that they're currently facing. And I'm pleased to be able to invite Dave Leonard from Matthew Moss High School as the host for today, who is now the Director of ICT across them. Forgot the name of your trust, David.
It's Watergrove Trust.
Watergrove Trust. So I'm going to hand over to David now, and I'm going to mute and enjoy the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul, and thank you everyone who's joined us. I know there's been some political wranglings in the background about where we can advertise this and where we can't, but that's all for another day. So thank you for joining us. And already, before this recording started, we've had 2 fixes to some very complex technical matters. The first one was the fact that who knew that microphones work better when they're in front of your mouth. So we managed to successfully improve Paul's input by giving him that valuable advice. And then the second question was a question that was asked by, it is harsh, Paul, I know, I'm sorry, but this is what you get when you come into the techies den sometimes. The second question was asked by Andrew, and that was around the use of centipedes. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with centipedes, this is a way of automating some of the Chromebook enrollment process for schools. And I have to say, it's something that I've thought about getting for a while and not actually taken the plunge into purchasing. So, Andrew, can I ask you just to give us a bit of an update as to how it's working for you in your school? And then maybe we can bring Dan in with the explanation of the fix.
Yeah, I mean, it's Chromebook City at the minute. We've got 1,000 coming this week that are going to be distributed across the map, which students have signed up to. And the government's obviously handing out Chromebooks like candy at the minute, aren't they? With isolation. So we've been on the government portal, and across the map we're eligible for about 220. So this week alone we've got 1,200 Chromebooks coming into the map. So we bought the centipedes just off Amazon, just put them up, set them up, and did them. The only issue that we had to work out was really the quickness of setting them up, and it was Paul who recommended the solution there to go with these centipedes. We've hooked them up, we've scripted them. The only issue we've got is the quotation marks where we put an @ sign in the script, the quotation marks appearing. But apparently that's a known. I assumed it sounded like an American English keyboard thing, so looking forward to sorting it. I can see Dan's just pasted the solution in, so thanks a lot for that, Dan. But that's where we're at now in terms of doing it. So I'm sure my techies will be very glad to get that, because I've got them in a cupboard setting up thousands right now.
That's cool. And like I say, it's something that I like the look of. When I was looking, probably a few months ago, I was unsure about where the best place for buying these from. You just bought them from Amazon, because it's come from Amplified IT, isn't it? They kind of released the code for it, but it's just an Arduino processor, isn't it, that you plug in via USB?
Yeah, it's just an Arduino processor. You just get it together, put it down. The cheapest one, actually, I think it said we had to get the Pro, but it was about 12 quid a unit. So we just bought 10 of them. Set them out. We've got them set up in our workstation in different areas and just putting the Chromebooks in ready to script and go. So, I mean, it looks like a more efficient process. I mean, we're obviously just literally on the day of setting them up this morning and getting it. But if it lets us hammer through 1,200 in a day, then all's good, really. We're hoping it will.
Yeah, that's cool. So I don't know whether you've got a link to that you could drop in the chat for us, Andrew. If you can dig that out, that would be really useful for me, as much as anybody else. But I am aware that we've got a couple of interlopers in here today as well. Some of our esteemed colleagues from the teaching fraternity. So we'll bring the conversation onto something that might make a little bit more sense to their delicate ears now, and stop talking too techie at this point. And really the focus today, I think, is about what has changed in IT support and what has it meant to you as technicians. So for those of you who are new to this process, this virtual staff room, this has been going on for 4 or 5 months now. Paul started it towards the beginning of lockdown anyway, and it runs every day. And this is the techie version of it that we're trying out today. But those of you who haven't been here before, please, we really encourage people just to join in and to join the chat. Hi Pete, how are you? Good to see you, mate. We're just encouraging people to join the chat and really contribute to the discussion. This is not meant to be one person talking at everybody else. I know that as techies, some of us like to hide in the basement and turn our cameras off and not get involved. But we're going to change that today. We're going to get everybody demonstrating the kind of learning dust philosophy. Shout out to Andy there, my co-host. For those of you who've never seen his face before, Andy is on the call. He's my co-host for Learning Dust. He's a top man. He's an advanced skills teacher, advanced skills practitioner. He's a clever man, and he does lots of cool teaching stuff. Number 115. So we've got a couple of teachers on. So let's demonstrate to them just how awesome this techie fraternity is. So my first question, and I'm going to throw this out to anybody really who wants to speak up, is how have your requests as a technical team changed over the period of lockdown and over the period of coming back in to schools? Don't make me do the teacher thing of picking on somebody. Somebody's going to have to unmute, otherwise I'll do that.
Okay, I can. Oh, no, someone else.
Oh no, I was going to say I'd answer, but I wasn't listening, so I can't. I was fixing something, so someone else will have to answer.
We'll go with you. Thank you very much for digging me out of that hole. And cheers, Dan. We'll come to you in a minute.
So I think in lockdown the biggest issue was just the ad hoc where there was gaps in expertise. It was very much kind of like triaging the service desk, wasn't it? I think a lot of people had that experience where it was, I want to do this with this class. What's the best way to do it? And it was very triagey. I think now things have gone a little bit more strategic. It's changed a lot. Whereas like the 2 layers of support is very much getting people to recognize from a training perspective, not just kind of the technical solution, but almost very much into the pedagogy of what makes a good online learning experience. It isn't kind of like, let's manage the crisis at all. It's very much, right, if we have to teach online, how do we do it? The support's a lot more like making sure that students at home who are isolated when you have a bubble burst have the connectivity and the support, and that if they're not, that the support channels are flagging that these students are having an issue, and that's feeding into a pastoral concern, whereas it previously wouldn't. And I think on the day-to-day stuff, in terms of supporting staff, the biggest challenge I think for us is we've always run a very social office where we've had people bob in all the time. We've never been an office that's gone, we're not seeing you till you put a ticket in, and only after 3 times of complaints will we let you in the office. And we've had to be really harsh with staff and repeatedly remind them, and even, you know, I've had to send words to some teachers and some staff to say, I'm really sorry, but you know, it's great that you want to pop by, but we need you to put the ticket in. We need you to do it through the proper system. Because our biggest concern is, being a MAT team, it's quite conceivable that within how we interact, if one of us goes down, we might all need to isolate. So I think we've just got to be careful that we don't end up in a situation where there's no on-site support, which is always a little bit of a risk with how fluid the team is. We tried to bubble ourselves in different areas and keep the skill to ourselves, but that's kind of our overriding concern.
And I know that we've got some colleagues on here from primary sectors, so they'll probably bristle at this next question. But in terms of separating your staff, is that something that people have been able to achieve? I think it's John, isn't it, from Highbury Park? You'll be going, oh, imagine the joy of having other staff to help me. But is that something that people have been able to achieve? Can you separate yourself? Can we mitigate that chance of one techie contracting the virus and everybody going down? What's people's experiences of that?
We've been able to, just. Unfortunately, I spent all summer sorting out our office so we could actually get my apprentice in, and then I got kicked out, so those 2 could handle it. I'm actually back in the office today because my apprentice is off. It feels weird being in where I've just set it up, but I'm now in the head teacher's secretary's office. That's where I've been put. That's an interesting one, put it that way. But yeah, we decided it was the best thing for us because, yeah, like you say, Andrew, if all of us go off, it's not an ideal situation to be in. Even if we can support a lot from home, you can't turn a board off and on from home. You've got to get someone else to do that. But yeah, we thought it's ideal. Obviously, you run into problems in terms of communication and stuff, but you find your ways around that. You do different ways, just adapt to the situation. And I think we've all had to adapt, haven't we, really, over this last 6-7 months, whatever we count as now. I don't know. I've lost track of time. But yeah, look, we as a team, we've handled it pretty well, I think, from what I can see. I know some other schools that I spoke to have struggled a little bit, mainly due to staffing, not having enough staff. The workload seems to have increased because, especially at our end, COVID's actually done us a bit of a favour. A lot of our teachers are a lot more interested in like the tech side of things and want to use more tools. But by wanting to use more tools, that therefore makes more work for us, which is great. But then the additive pressure of everything else that's going on, obviously, it's a bit high stakes at the moment. Everyone's on top note, and I think it will be for quite some time. But yeah.
So how have those requests changed then over the period of lockdown? Have people seen, from a technical perspective, are they seeing a difference in the requests that we're getting from our colleagues, or is it much the same but with an extra layer of complexity?
I think there's a quantity.
Hello, I'll take this one if you like.
Hi, Pete. Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, if you're speaking then. Yeah, I'll just say quickly, so over lockdown, I felt like I wasn't an IT manager anymore. I was effectively a digital coach, kind of doing mostly staff training and just going through a one-on-one with our staff on how to use different tools we're introducing. But now we're back in college. Things have kind of gone back to normal in terms of our day-to-day help desk requests, although there's just many more of them, partly because of we're delivering a blended learning timetable now, so there's more support there, and plus our student numbers have actually grown this year, which is so we had something like 800 help desk requests in September, which was pretty much double what we'd had the previous year. So day to day, it just felt like we're firefighting. But it's kind of calmed down a bit now, and all the training we did over lockdown for teachers is really paid off. As we've still got people using things like Screencastify and Flipgrid and all the other tools we introduced. So definitely worthwhile doing that.
That's interesting, Pete. Anybody else, anything to add on that point? And I'll throw that open to our teacher colleagues as well. Have you found that the response from technical teams has differed over lockdown? Go on, Andy. Oh, we've got a queue. Let's go ladies first. Sammy, what's your views on that?
I sort of sit a foot in each camp. Because I do the technical rollout support staff with using the technical stuff. And I think the volume of requests has certainly died down now because people should be trying it and doing all the things that we've promoted for so long. But our IT team are still very much separate to the teaching team. And even today, I've been bridging the gap between the two and negotiating a best plan of action. And it's really interesting to hear you guys say how you're more active and proactive in there. And it seems to be working much better. And I think we can probably learn from that.
Interesting. Andy, what were you going to say?
I think I've found a couple of things, really. Number one is that I'm sort of a foot in both camps, being a computing teacher, and that when I'm going to other teaching staff or leadership and I'm saying, do you realise we've got this Microsoft Office environment and we can do this, this and this, and they're going, yeah, that's lovely, great, I'll look at that when I've got a minute. But now it's a case of we need a way of parents remotely booking parents' evening appointments. So now the sort of the approach to tech from the teaching side is driven by the fact that we have to do it this way. So the engagement's kind of been forced. The exam's tomorrow, so people are revising. And the other thing is that, I think especially at our school, we've got 1,600 pupils, 160 plus staff, and 3 technicians and a network manager. So people are being a lot kinder. Dave used a phrase a little while ago in terms of we're building the plane as we fly it. And I think everyone's really, at our place, has really got on board with that. And you're just giving people a bit more slack. And if something doesn't happen immediately, you understand why.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because I feel that certainly at our place, there was an element of some teachers who aren't computing teachers and therefore don't claim to have a foot in both camps, we're actually doing a little bit of the triage of their user issues, because they were the ones who were in communication with them, whether that was through video meetings or through Google Classroom or through Microsoft Teams, whatever it was. They were seeing some of those initial queries that come into the technical teams all the time. So I think the teachers maybe understood a little better. And as a result, I've certainly felt that there's been that empathy and that extra kindness in the place. Is that something that other people agree with, or has anybody got the opposite experience of that? Very quiet, which means that everybody's been extra kind. Anybody want to jump in on that, Andrew?
I think there's a lot more appreciation of what the job actually involves. That's definitely what I'd say. I wouldn't say it's necessarily kindness and patience, but I think people are a lot more, could this be possible? Expectations are at the level where people will ask, could I try this? Is this possible? And will recognize that the things that the job can do. And I think there's an empathy from that side I'm seeing a lot more of. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily seeing empathy in terms of necessarily like service length or ticket agreement times and things like that. That doesn't seem to have changed, but actually understanding a little bit more about what we do, and that perhaps some of these first line issues aren't massively things that need to take up everybody's time, and people being maybe just a little bit more resilient. I mean, there's some people who aren't, we still get, I think even my first day here, I still got a call out if somebody hadn't plugged some speakers in or something silly like that. But yeah, I think people are sort of understanding what the job is a bit more.
That's interesting. Just spotting comments in the chat that Ian's put in there, and he's referencing Pete Horner's use of internet telephony. Now, Pete, you've rolled out Google Voice at your college, haven't you? That's something that we've tested recently. Can you share with us how that's gone and what the pros and cons? I know not every school here is a Google school, but there are, other solutions. What's your experiences of Google Voice?
Yeah, so to give you a bit of background, updating our phone system's been on our list of things to do for a long time. We've got a very old system, but it worked up until lockdown, when everyone was at home and it had no soft phone facilities, so nobody could use it, so it sat there collecting dust. So in late August, when we have our enrolment, we normally expect about 2,000 students to come in over 3 days for their interviews, and obviously our phone system wouldn't have been able to handle it if we wanted to go voice only for that. We did consider going using Google Meet, but we thought that's going to be a bit of a technical nightmare, generating that many Meet links, getting them to the right people, and we don't know what the technology is like on the other end. So we talked to C Learning and quickly deployed Google Voice. We purchased about 170 licenses, and which are very easily assigned in the admin console. And yeah, it went perfectly. Very, very good feedback from our teachers, which is good. So I think we're going to ultimately go for a cloud-based phone system next. I'm not sure whether it's going to be Google Voice or not. So I'm just looking around at some of the other competitors like Ring Central and Dialpad, just to get a better feel for different levels of functionality out there, because it does lack some of the features which we'd have in a traditional PBX on site. But maybe there are features we could live without now, but we just need to approach what we actually want out of a phone system in a different way. But yeah, very happy with Google Voice though. For enrolment, we've got parents' evening this week as well, so we'll be using it again for that, which is great because people don't need to be in college; they can do it from their home if they want to. So yeah, lots of good feedback about it.
That's cool. I know that I don't know if Andrew's still with us. He may be off camera at the moment. I remember you telling us about. Were you using Google Nest or something similar to place calls remotely, Andrew?
Just in the special use cases, we bought a few Google Homes for people who needed it over lockdown. So just odd assistants who needed it left, right, and centre. Our telephony solution we've gone to in the end, which we're migrating to now, is 3CX. We explored quite a few different options, and having trialled them extensively, 3CX was the best one for us. I think it managed to get our costs down ridiculously low. It's a very good soft phoning solution. The app just runs on anything. It works in a web browser. The Chrome extension also is a bit like Google Voice in that if you ring the number, your Chrome extension will just open up a new little pop-up. It'll just come down, the extension automatically opens and just says, do you want to accept or deny the call? You've got a dial pad that's there. Essentially, I won't need a phone on my desk when we get that finished and that project completed. So that's our new phoning solution of choice. The Google Home was a bit of a patchy one. But our main communication method with parents has really been Meet. We've absolutely abused the Google Calendar APIs to be able to mass produce Meet links and churn them out and essentially just assign one to each teacher. So in our parents' evening booking system, in each of our 5 schools, we've just given every teacher a unique link to their Meet, so they have the ability to accept or deny. You have to obviously now tell Google that you want to allow externals to connect to your call. That's a service desk request, not an admin console feature, but it does work. And we've handed them out, and I think we're on to our 4th parents' evening with it now. So I'd say it went okay. Attendance hasn't been brilliant. It's gone down to about 75 to 80%, but a few were having technical issues. So we've just triaged that so that on parents' evening, we've trained up the receptionist who would normally deal with queries coming in to troubleshoot things like it's silly things like typing the wrong Meet link, or they've tried to connect with a phone but they haven't followed the instructions to install Google Meet. So we think that should get our attendance back in the 90s, we're hoping.
That's excellent. I know that, Andy, you've been doing some work with your Year 7 learners, haven't you, and parents. Was that through Zoom you were using, or Microsoft Teams?
Well, we're in, the Northwest, aren't we? So people have to walk in front of us with a bell ringing it at the moment. So we've had, personally, I've had Year 11 out for 2 weeks. I've had Year 10 out for 2 weeks as a whole year group, and now half my Year 10s are out again. My form are currently out self-isolating. And one of the things, the decision was made at our place was they went with Zoom because people knew how to use it. I think, we're an Office 365 school as well, but the staff training wasn't up to scratch, and to get everyone in there, trained up on 0 time, I think they just went, we know how to use Zoom, we can get it in, and we're going to use that. So tomorrow morning, I'm doing a form time with my form.
Okay.
We're kind of a multi-platform approach. I'd love to know if anybody can help us out with this, because I'd love to go and be able to recommend and say we can go full Office 365, we can do assignments through Teams, video meetings through Teams, this, that, and the other. But we also use Show My Homework, and that does something I've not found anywhere else, which is it collates the homework, all the assignments that students have got for homework and so on, into one place, and parents have a sign-in as well. And that's the thing, that communication with home is really good. So if anybody knows a way of bringing that in under the Office 365 umbrella, it could save us some money. And we could just then, single sign-in is king for me. If you can do that and just use the one username and password, the amount of time, like Dave said, I spend a lot of time doing triage, resetting passwords, and other form tutors come to me because kids have got a problem with Show My Homework. So I'll try and field a lot of that before it makes its way into your offices. But if it was a single sign-in, a single email, a single password, one ring to rule them all, it'd be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that point. Has anybody got any solutions for Andy? I know that we've got a heavy Google bias on the call, and Ian's already trying to turn you away from the dark side and bring you into Google, Andy.
Dave, I wasn't. What I was trying to say was, I know that, for example, all the guys at David Ross Education Trust, they log in with their Office 365 accounts, but they use Teams, and they use a number of the Microsoft comms products, but then they use Google Classroom as what Andy was saying, just a place where you go to find out as a parent or a student what homework you've got or what work you've got, and then link to the resources. And I know from their point of view, they then link out to OneDrive or the resources they need to do. So it's worth just checking whether anybody is just using, because of course for you, Andy, it's free. Yeah. So there's no cost to it, and it might be that you can, in the same way as other people just pinch bits of Microsoft products to plug some gaps, then you could take Classroom to plug the gap. It's well worth trying. And Andrew, we've had some good conversations about internet telephony. I think the thing that came out from the conversation with Peter was literally he had a problem, and in a matter of hours, he just bumped the number of sort of virtual phone lines from 20 to 170. Did the work for the student enrollment, and then just knocked it all back down. So it's like, I want to pay for it. Here it is. I've used it, and then I've just switched it off. Peter, aren't you going to do that again? Because you sort of went up, did the work, and then just dropped it down, and then you've got to speak to the students again or something.
Yeah, so we've just increased it back to 170s. We've got parents' evenings and student interviews happening now. Yeah, so back up to 170.
Yeah,
on a single sign-on topic, I was just going to mention we use a product called Micro Focus Access Manager, which is a single sign-on kind of gateway, which we use to sit in front of all of our internal web services, but it can also do single sign-on to external services like Google for Education and Office 365. Not sure how much it would be for schools. Probably be a bit cheaper than our license, but it's a fairly technical solution. But for our number of internal web servers we've got and different services which users need to sign into now, it's worth that investment in setting that up.
Yeah, no, that's good, and I know that there are increasing sort of cloud-based sort of single sign-on solutions as well as the on-prem ones, Peter. But yeah, if anybody is interested in just trialing the Google Voice, then just give us a shout, and we can put some calls up for you for free. I'll hand it back to you, Dave.
Thanks, Ian. I think just going back to Andy's point briefly there, I think it's really interesting to see the number of schools that are now moving to a hybrid environment and taking on board what Ian was saying there about that benefit of being able to pick and choose between the two. Has anybody on the call got experience of that? Is anybody doing that already? And what were the pros and cons and the difficulties of setting that up, if you were? Or has nobody got experience? And I would just take your silence as an indication to move on to, let's change the subject a little bit, shall we, and move on from there. Okay. So one of the other things that was mentioned earlier on was that empathy and that recognition that things have changed. I wonder for everybody on the call, both techies and teachers, what are the things that have changed as a result of lockdown? What is the silver lining to our experience? And what are the things that you definitely will be keeping going forward? That this experience has taken the necessity as a mother of invention approach and facilitated that change. We've already talked about things coming on that weren't ever going to happen before in any kind of meaningful timescale. What examples can people give of what's changed?
Yeah, one practical change we've made is we've gone completely Chromebook for all of our teachers now. So all of the fixed desktop PCs which were collecting dust throughout lockdown have been reallocated or retired, and now every single teacher has a Chromebook, a nice Acer Spin 13, which they can use from home or in any room in the college, and that's gone down really well. I was a bit worried at first. Some staff would miss Windows, but yeah, so we've gone full Chromebook, and I think that's also helped reduce our IT team's workload, which has been nice because there's less devices to fix. Where we had a desktop in a workroom and a classroom for a teacher, now we just got one device, and teachers like it because it's a lot faster. There's no kind of long log-on waiting times now. Everything's a lot quicker, and from a strategic point of view, it's helped push more things up to Google, up to the cloud, and move away from those old PowerPoint files which have just been updated year on year. So yeah, that's been a positive change for us.
Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody from the non-Google fraternity got anything to put forward on that? Terry, anything from your point of view, or John?
Hello there.
Hi, mate. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we're just still in dinosaur ages, being a primary school, in that the set in the ways that if they're a year 4 teacher and a year 4 teacher for past 10 years, then they just want to carry on. I've tried to set up teams. We've got the DFE funding for that. It's all set up, ready to go. But with lack of timing now, one of our classes is out on isolation. They just said, we'll just bang all the files up on the website for children to download, and they'll just email them back and communicate the old-fashioned way of email, and that's the way that the school's happy, management's happy, and I can't change that mentality of them at the moment, unfortunately.
So are you finding then that making changes across the board is difficult? Is it that, are we going back to that old how do you eat an elephant approach?
Yeah, myself and boss and management, we've done team meetings through VR, and then they went, no, we prefer Zoom, which is fair enough. I said everything's all into Teams, that you can just call anybody, that you can put files up there, but then I need to set out remote access, so everyone's got remote access, so they can get the documents. But it says, if we put everything up in Teams, then all your documents are there, we can share them. Oh no, we don't want to do that. It means training staff, try and get them to use OneDrive, but staff are reluctant. So I've stopped using USB pen drives, but it still says, oh well, we'll still go remote, but they don't want to use OneDrive, they don't want to use Teams, so we're still back in the old ways of life, unfortunately, being primary school.
So, Mr. Marshall, I don't know. I know you've typed in the chat there that you've gone full 365. Are you? I don't know if you're in an environment where you're able to unmute and show.
Yeah, right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I recognise the face. I didn't recognise the name. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. You?
Yeah, good. Thank you. So, what's your experience like, and how can you? What advice can you give to John about how to move forward from that?
Yeah, it's interesting because our primary school has been 365 fully for maybe 3 or 4 years now before I joined the trust. Secondary school was the complete opposite, so network drives, etc. So we started planning the actual project in, I think it was January, February time, before like everything properly sort of went into lockdown, etc. And then we sort of just carried on as we had planned as such. So the initial thought from the IT manager who's in charge of the secondary school side was very much staff have always had it this way, and they didn't like the idea of changing, and people weren't going to on board. We sort of came in and had these meetings and very much went, okay, we're doing this because we can foresee this happening, the whole COVID thing happening, etc. So we did it, and we've had really good success. The staff onboarded immediately because obviously they didn't have a choice. It was like they wanted to access their documents. Here's how you access your documents from home. And actually we were after, there were a few technical issues. We were migrating, obviously a lot of data as such into the cloud. We've got a single tenant across both our schools now, single sign-on, etc. I mean, we've got an issue with single sign-on today, but it's just part of it as such. And like the overall experience, there was a lot of work, and having to configure a lot of stuff. And I think we uploaded about 2 terabytes worth of data in the end, so not massive amount. I think there was 6 terabytes of data originally on these shared drives, and we very much said to people, "You're not having it all." And we could tell half of it hadn't been touched in 6-7 years, so that's been great. The teaching's been incredible as well. So we've been able to teach during lockdown all the lessons that the staff wanted to, or the way the trust decided to teach at both primary and secondary level. But over the last sort of month or so, we've had year 11 self-isolating for 2 weeks. We've had, I think there's about 46 from students. We've currently got our year 6s off, 1 class of our year 5s, and year 3 returned as well. So we've had quite a large scale sort of a large amount of people off, I guess. And where we are as well, so we're in the middle of Newtown, which is in pretty much Birmingham City Centre. So like the area, like they're not well off. The kids haven't got 5 laptops and iPads at home. So we've taken advantage of the DFE laptop scheme. So I think in total now we've had about 350 laptops off them. So that's been successful. So we've been able to enable teaching and learning to those who, you know, wouldn't have it without those devices. That's on top of, I think we deployed about 500 laptops that the trust had anyway to students for remote learning. So, you know, being 365 fully, we didn't embrace Zoom at the start. You know, there was a few rogue teachers here and there. We've done Zoom, we've done this. Brilliant, like nothing really against it other than there was some concerns from the security and privacy point of view at the very beginning. And obviously there's that whole Zoom hijacking thing, and I appreciate it's got better. But we were like, look, we've got 365, we've spent a lot on licensing, etc. We're going to spend a lot more on licensing to enable us to do more. And from a safeguarding point of view, the lessons that we did, or we are still doing, they're all recorded anyway. So as soon as a meeting starts or a lesson starts, gets recorded. And it was uploaded to Stream. That's the auto upload isn't a thing anymore to Stream, but we've configured it now so it auto uploads to either OneDrive or the Teams SharePoint. And we've built everything through Teams as well. So all the new basically it's Teams channels for departments, and then using their file sections in SharePoint, etc. So we didn't really give everyone like, this is SharePoint, this is one, like show all these different apps. We've literally shown people Teams, and this is how you access X and Y, because you can access all your files for it. And yeah, other than a few technical issues, really, really good success. So I think I'm a 365 boy. I don't know if I'm allowed in this call, but here I am.
Oh yeah, everybody's welcome, no matter how dirty you are. No, I mean, Ian made the point. It's great to demonstrate how any school can move to the cloud, whether it's Microsoft or Google. I always say it's a bit of a fork. It was a bit of a fork in the road for our school. We chose one path, other schools choose others. And I think, as we mentioned, as we touched upon earlier in the conversation, there is a chance that those paths will converge again, and that schools will end up as hybrid institutions. Thanks, Andy. Thanks for joining us, mate. Speak to you later. I wonder, you mentioned then a little bit about the DFE devices.
Yeah.
And I wondered how transformative that's been, because let's face it, the DFE get a lot of stick, and they get a lot of stick from me as well. And I'm not saying that they're doing things perfect. But Pete's just jumped in there saying none for further education.
Yeah.
What are other people's experiences of that on the call? From our point of view, I'm in a relatively small trust. We've got 5 schools in our trust. Geographically, they're quite clustered, and only one of the schools has been able to order any devices through this latest tranche of the scheme. So every day I'm checking the portal sort of 4 or 5 times just to see whether we've now hit the threshold of whatever algorithm it is that works out whether we're able to order devices or not. How's everybody else on the call finding that? I'm just having a look around to see we've not spoken to yet. Caroline, I don't know whether you're with us and whether you've got any thoughts on that. If you're able to speak, then please do so. If not, if anybody else wants to jump in and give their experiences. Abid, you've not spoken, and that's unnatural. Let's remedy that situation straight away.
Only because my throat is an absolute mess. But
Abid's been very poorly, so sorry to hear that, mate. So instead of vote for Abid, we're on pray for Abid now. Make sure that he's getting better soon.
I don't know if that's a decline or. It is something that we've been looking at our trust as well, and I think the process was very, very overly complex. There were loads and loads of emails that had gone out that kind of said, this is what we're going to be doing, and we want people to sign up. We want you to let us know who's going to be there to order the devices. But it just wasn't clear to me anyway initially how we were supposed to go about this, and everything I was getting was being forwarded through the CEO or the head teacher. So as the IT person, I wasn't getting the information directly, but I got a call from one of our schools who we support to say we've just had 67 Dell Chromebooks arrive as part of the DFE package. Can you help us set them up? So it's definitely working for some schools, and they've been given a full take-home package. So it's a Chrome device with a backpack to take it home, but it's a standalone device, or at least that's the intention, because it doesn't come with a Chrome management license. So that's something that might have to be purchased. I don't know if that's a mistake or if that's something that the school didn't pick up on, because I haven't gone through the process myself. But when I asked, I said, sure, we can set these up for you, but have the Chrome licensing been added? And he hadn't even been asked for any of the Google domain details. So I don't know if that is something that the DFE themselves are aware of, that needs to be done as part of that package.
Yeah, on the portal, we've had to specify which domain we want to register them to, and we've had the management license provided to us as part of that. I'd certainly push back on that and challenge that, because it's a significant cost otherwise, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was worried about. But yeah, I haven't been able to go through the process myself, so I don't know, because I just think the portal was a bit. Seems to me it was designed to sort of stop people from taking the mick, but at the same time, there is the need there, because we have got quite, especially in Newham, there's a high level of vulnerability. So there are and deprivation. So we do need to get those devices out to children as soon as possible, especially with local lockdowns imminent. It's something, but for all of the stick that we do give to the DFE, it's good to see that they've supplied, they've opened up that service in some way or another, because that will help lots and lots of vulnerable families.
Yeah, and Caroline makes the same point in the chat, saying that the distribution of devices has enabled a level playing field for pupils. I wonder how far and how much extra investment would be needed for us to push as a country to a one-to-one model. And I know that some schools have that already, but given the number of devices that have gone out, I think maybe from our perspective in our area, and again, it's obfuscated slightly by the algorithm to work out how many devices each school gets. But we'd almost be if we combine the first wave and the second wave, we've probably got enough devices provided to us by the DFE for a third to a half of our learners to have been provided with a device. So could that be stretched, do we think? Do you think the DFE are going to grant us their magic wand and their wallet out again and take it the rest of the way? Jamie, you'll have an opinion on this, I'm sure, if you're able to speak. I don't know whether you're with us in body as well as in avatar.
Yeah, I'm here, Dave. Yeah, good to see you. Just repeat that last part of the question again, Dave.
I'm just wondering whether you've got any thoughts about whether the DFE would stretch further to fill in the gaps that still remain and take us to a full one-to-one model nationwide.
Well, do you know what? That's the $1 million question, isn't it? There's no question.
$1 million, isn't it?
Yeah, well, exactly. Probably $100 million, actually. To be fair, and I think just picking up on the point that several people have made actually already, credit where credit's due. I've never seen in my career the DFE actually do anything decisive, if I'm being that brutal about it. So I think it's great that they've done something. So I think credit where credit's due. The politicians and departments like the DFE get a lot of criticism all the time, and sometimes very justified. But on this occasion, decisions were taken. Whether we like the two platforms, 365 or G Suite, is irrelevant. They made a decision. They had a platform provisioning program. And to be fair, from what I understand, the government has tried to grab every Chromebook and laptop it possibly could anywhere in the world to try and secure it for young people who need it and for any student who needs it. They probably had the same challenge that a lot of education technology companies had, which is you can only manufacture so much excess capacity. So there is huge challenges for all of the big tech companies and all of the big manufacturers. That's one challenge. But if you park that, is it inherently a good idea to move more to a one-to-one device approach? Well, yes, I think it is. Not everybody needs that, but an awful lot of people do. And I think one of the big issues from this year, amongst many issues that we're aware of, is the I don't really like, somebody didn't call it digital poverty recently. They called it something else, which was a phrase I preferred. But this issue of digital resources that people need, and it isn't just that, is it? It's also having an environment that is conducive to learning, because many young people do not have that. And that's why, for example, this is one of the critical services that schools and colleges provide, is that, frankly, they provide a safe and secure environment that is conducive to learning. And not everybody has that. That's why things like learning resource centres are so important. And I've seen many examples in colleges where those are critical places for young people to be able to learn, not just because of the kit, but to be in a safe and secure environment where people are also supporting learning. So I think there's a lot more resources needed for that. If there's one thing that I think is great that's come out of this year, I think that the whole of society is seeing teachers and educators and all the people that support it in a very different light to before. And frankly, I think part of that is that for all the parents who've had their children at home for greater extents and having to support their learning, I think it's shed a bit of a different light on the expertise and the support that those young people get in schools. And I think that's a good thing. My hope now for the future is that we resource it properly and we also give it the recognition that it deserves, because teachers have been on the front line in this year as much as any other critical service, and all educators and the support staff as well, and everybody on this call. So yeah, that's my hope for the future. I don't know if that's a good answer or not, Dave, but that's my view.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much for that insight, Jamie. I know Paul's thinking that it's not going to happen because of the battle for funding elsewhere. I think it's a nice. I think it's like everything else, isn't it? We're handed the moon on a stick, and what we want is the moon on a stick covered in chocolate. We get something completely unexpected, and which we're very grateful for, but we always want more when that happens. So I'm going to move on to a different question.
Dave,
Sorry,
that's a question. Yeah, getting all the devices for the students is great, but they have to get online as well.
Yeah.
So I put a question in the chat. Can people share with us any experience they've got of using internet dongles from any of the major mobile operators? Do they work? How much do they cost? Do people recommend them?
Anybody got any views on that? I'm going to have to speak then, aren't I? So my experience, I'll be honest, with dongles, it was almost like it was an anachronism when I was first asked the question this time round, because we used to use them, gosh, years ago. And they were never particularly reliable. So the only ones that we've got this time round are the ones that were provided by the DFE. They're okay. But for me, in fact, we've got our Google Innovator chat that was active on this topic this morning. Somebody was asking about the potential for using a mobile dongle. And on the whole, people are probably better served using their phones was the response I gave there. But not everybody's got that option. I know that Stephen Hope from the Edufuturist was really keen on putting some pressure on the telephony companies and ISPs to basically exclude educational sites from the data allowance that people use up over on their mobile data. Yeah, I think they've been okay, but we've probably it's better than nothing, isn't it? It is dependent on signal as well. That's been one of the big issues that we've had with the DFE ones that we've given out, is that they've been given out to people who sometimes live in an area that's got poor reception anyway. So therefore, it's just a piece of plastic in the bag. It's neither use nor ornament to them, unfortunately. Anybody else any experiences of those?
I'll kind of say one thing, similar vein of talk, so I'll talk about it, if that's okay. There's a local company to us which I spoke to last year, and things kind of went by the wayside a little bit because COVID happened and we all forgot. And actually, it would have been really useful to remember. But then I talked to them and they got very busy. But basically, they're a local internet provider called 6G. So they're very local to us, and they've been doing some work with Blackburn Rovers charity, which obviously is local to us. We're in Blackburn, and they've been putting in 4G routers into vulnerable children's homes for free. They have, good point, Jamie. I actually asked them at one point why they picked 6G, and the actual answer was, well, we never thought we'd get to 6G. So yeah, it's quite apparent. So they're putting in these 4G routers into students' homes completely for free. They did not, they counted something as homework hours, and between homework hours, they had completely unlimited data usage and as high speeds as possible, and then outside of homework hours, use capped at usage and capped at speeds. So for free, for some schools who don't, no, sorry, for some students who literally don't have anything, you can't complain. But that's like one little company, one little internet provider who's offering that. And apparently there was a big news article about it, and they're doing a lot of work. And they were working with with Blackburn Rovers charity to actually put devices in homes as well. So if they didn't have any sort of PC, laptop, they were getting them free from there. And we've actually had a couple of our students through this scheme have that in. And they basically, it's on their own network though. It's not, they're not, well, when I say it, this is the thing. They sell it as 4G, but to a technical person, it is not 4G in the slightest. So I don't know why they sell it as 4G to schools when they go in, but the minute they come in and actually talk to you about it, it's like, no, it's on our own network, and not a 4G network at all. So they're putting their masts up in various places to create their own. It's like when you put a fibre to a building link type thing and you just link it all around. That's basically what they're doing. So it's not an actual 4G, technically.
So it's like a mesh network, is it?
Yeah, exactly. They're making a mesh, and so that's why it's only covering certain areas. But last time I checked, they've covered the entire of Blackburn, entire of Burnley. They've nearly covered the entire of Preston, nearly the entire of Blackpool, and they're pushing further south into Greater Manchester. So as they expand and grow, that'll open up so much more opportunities for other schools to get involved. But it's something which it's great to see. It's just like you said, Dave, if only more people could do it, more of those internet providers could help. It would make a massive difference, wouldn't it, really?
Yeah. Just jumping back to a question that Jack's asked in the chat there, which is regards to what people are using for filters. I know that Dan's been having lots of fun with filtering.
Don't even speak to me about filtering right now. Do not. I will walk.
So let's go to other people and ask their opinion on filtering and what's worked well for them. Paul, I'm starting to sympathise with you with these dead silences now. This is what I always have to come in and save you on.
Yeah, Dave, let me talk about the work that Roger Nixon's doing at sort of River Learning Trust in Oxford. They've got about 20 to 30 primary and secondary schools across the trust. And what Roger's doing is, as the existing internet connections sort of roll to the end of their renewal, he's sort of moving them all to different internet provider. Might be Virgin. They may have got a wide deal, but then he's adding securely as a web-based filtering tool. So it's taking away as many of the internal sort of appliances that he can from within the schools. So it doesn't matter where he is in terms of being able to manage them remotely. So I can only talk for Roger and that trust, but what I'm seeing in general is where people can remove any physical appliance or as much of their physical appliances. And I made a reference earlier to the great work that Alex Owen has done down at Westminster Academy. My last sort of thing, I think he's removed literally every server in that secondary school. He doesn't have any at all, and yet running a really secure and great thing. So I know lots of people have got contracts for devices of lots of different things, and you got to let those contracts run. But when it comes to renewal time, then it's well worth looking at some of the cloud solutions as an alternative to just replacing like with like. Okay.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ian. I did mention that we use Smoothwell here. We use the Smoothwell Connect, and that's working really well. And I noticed Abby's just posted that LGFL have got that Home Protect product that looks very interesting, and is something that if we didn't have Smoothwell Connect, we probably would have tested out. Abby, have you got anything to add on that? Have you tested that at all? I
haven't tested it myself yet. No, but I was just looking. I have been looking into it, and I didn't actually notice the 6 months free trial with no commitment to buy or anything like that. And it seems like it might do. It might do a half decent job. It works on iOS, Chrome, and Windows platform. So yeah, it looks like something that I'll definitely try. But 6 months, no obligation, seems like a good way to suss out any of the any quirks in it that need to be that might be a stumbling block. But I know like some of the other like Smoothwall and Securely are really good options as well, and they've been doing, those products are quite mature, so they'll be great to look at as well.
Anybody else, any experience of that or any other alternatives to offer, Jack?
I mean, I'm quite enjoying the Smoothwall stuff. I've used it for a few years now, and it's sort of pushed us to the cloud, COVID again, sort of thing. So we're in the process of sort of pushing. We've always had Smoothwall Monitor, or what was Visigo, I believe. But now we're deploying the full cloud thing or solution via Intune, which is fun. So yeah, that's where we're at with that.
That's cool. Right. I'm checking my time, and we're a minute to go to the end. So I'm going to wrap up a little bit from my side and just say thanks so much to everybody for joining us and for joining in. I didn't have too many uncomfortable silences, and that's great to see that so many of you were willing to contribute, and really appreciate those of you who weren't able to. I'm sure that's because you're busy working in the background doing proper jobs rather than chatting to me at lunchtime. So thank you from me very much to you guys for turning up, and thank you to Ian and Jamie and Paul for the opportunity to host today from this techie focus side. Who knows, we might repeat it again in the future. So thanks very much, Paul. I'll hand back over to you to wrap things up.
Dave, thank you very much. That was excellent. From my point of view, the thing that's been most encouraging, one, that we are opportunists. So when the DV do make a decision, we're all on it and making sure that we do it. And actually, the thing that encourages me most was that you do it because you're passionate about the learners in your institutions. That's the message that we've got. All these solutions, and I have to say, hand on heart, I was concerned that this might be far too techie for me. I might not understand it. But we've spent an hour talking about learning and solutions to learning, which has been really encouraged me. And let's hope that we do continue to apply pressure to the DV to get those decisions. I think we probably won't get to a one-to-one, but we might well get to more money, and more things that can actually make sure that wherever your students are, at home or at school, they continue to get the very best learning that you can offer them. So thank you very much to all who attended. It's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and we will be posting it up onto our Virtual Staffroom YouTube channel. So please do go and point people to it that weren't able to make it, and they may well also benefit from your conversations as well. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good rest of the day. Take care, everyone.